The Journey of Styles by Damien Renwick. Limestone, Triste. Within the long, everlasting tunnel, he could see a light, not much unlike the ones growing from the ground around him. To his left was another tunnel, as vast and expansive. Dug out long ago, after surmising the roof of the tunnel to be 200 meters high, he peered on to the right, smiling briefly. The lights danced and flickered, happily moving in two small orbits from right to left. He hadn't figured out what the light was. Then, as Styles looked at the floor, sparks rose, and a ping or something flew out. The ground, he noticed, and the polygons where he stood, and others were now yellow. The ones in the distance were not. The two swirling lights were in the distance. How could they not be? He was sure they belonged to the feelings associated with the eyes he saw upon the bamboo that day. The eyes grew large and eclipsed the flashes that had been bellowing below. It was a Madagascan. A sense of danger was with it. How might they have appeared in this place? Boom! Went a thump that shattered his train of thought in the connection with the ancient one in the tunnel. He looked to his left. The figure he saw in the icy-looking tunnel to his left looked like a man. The figure stood still. In the hands was the crown he had seen. The crown of 36 Tristes. The feeling calling him towards the fiery Tristes provoked him with each step. To his right, the shadow of the Madagascan seemed to lighten up and become luminescent green and opal purple, deep and thick. As the man to his left placed the crown upon his head, he screamed, "Hawa!" The man on the right, dressed in a dark uniform, held a crude gun. Oblivious to the towering Madagascan hovering over him, the two eyes of the Madagascans were all that Styles could see, even now. It was obvious the human was confused. If he, Styles, had only now discovered Madagascans, then he assumed the human would not see it, for it looked like two yellow moons, and as it turned sideways, its purple furry fog was impossible to discern. Trying to read into the poor man's soul, he ran to the man with the crown. He was nervous, so he counted his steps. The crown was easy to see. Its colors and shines preceded it. If the colors played like that when this person wore the crown, then maybe they would help him find a way out. The man waved, putting 3 middle fingers in the air. 54th step. He looked to his right to see the Madagascan's eyes look up in pain. The human screamed, inhaling the mad essence into his entire being. Suddenly, Styles felt terrible as the pain shuddered inside him. He realized the man with the gun was waiting for him the entire time. Somehow, he knew the man with the 36 crystal crown. As he ran ever closer to the crowned man, he realized the man resembled the statue that lay behind him. The elders. Pin. Waves of memories flowed over him. Flashes of light lit up his face. Still, he does not blink. He felt the vibrant waves of light with his eyes. The rainbow cycle flared from the crowned crystals illuminating the man's head. Black and obsidian flew his mind to the further reaches of Javendia, to Jacan, where the feelings ebbed and took hold of the darkness. Styles used yellow light quartz and quickly counteracted the effects of the otherworldly obsidian. Styles felt a symphony of sound. C's, G's, and he could hear the song of the crown. He could hear Nip Nip's words in the air. The crystals on the crown were from every different place in the world, and that the connection between the various kingdoms, where the original crystals were located, were all upon this one crown. They were all connected to the man who wore it. This would happen in the Tijikirpa, the dream world. Through the cracks in the light, he saw for the first time what he had wanted to see his whole life. His father's face. In the crown, and upon the face that wore it, was his father. Free from all the kangaroo-type qualities he was used to. His father had somehow acquired all those years ago. "It's you, Grandfather," Styles screamed to the bearded man in front of him, using his mind bone cautiously to not alert the human a kilometer to his right. The human seemed to be taking his time in doing anything of consequence, and had been oblivious to the behemoth Madagascan. The flowers growing from the phosphorus megalithic walls shone white like opal. They were growing to massive proportions. He knew the flower only looked like one, and that there were more to see. Then slowly, the flowers began to recede back into the crystal wall, as if dying and completing a season in moments. The human who had been standing still was now absorbing the energies left from the behemoth. Whether the human knew it or not, one day he would be able to summon the powers of that behemoth. As all the light and fear sucked into the void, only feet from the clothed man, Styles observed carefully, using his second sight. The human ran towards the wall near the statue. Blue light trickled off the human as if he had fireflies in his ears. "Do not worry. He cannot see us," the man said. He could feel a lump swelling in his throat. He became thirsty for the first time he could ever remember. Memories of him and his father flew from the blue glow atop his father's head. Memories of them together in their place with their people. He could feel an inner sense of responsibility and awareness he hadn't felt in a long time. The bearded man, who had been focusing his crystal energies upon the pair of them, transgressing memories and instilling wisdom, did something unexpected. He turned around and faced away from Styles, revealing his back, which was armored with tattoos in 9 distinct shapes. The black skin Styles remembered was almost unseeable, for the tattoos shone in multiple spectrals of light, penetrating every crevice of Pimpin's back. The tattoos were known as the Nine. As the luminescent tattoos became the dominant light source, Styles protected his face with his hands. As he did, he saw his hands from another perspective. They looked more like the paws of Nipnip. So this is what leveling up feels like, he said again, as if to let him, Pin, know everything was okay. The landscape beyond Styles' paws shone bright now. It was more magnificent than the changing form of his hands. The human had made it to the underground city. He could see now this city was where the two colossal tunnels met at obelisks and tubular peaks lay only on the top right portion of constructs. There seemed to be a sky of some type. A greenish fog scuttled across the roof. Purple light would weave between the vapors. The once dead and long forgotten city was alive with activity. Ingenious devices lay harnessing the power of the sun. The human was now gone from view, oblivious to the two of them. He turned around to see Pin in the crown. Light in the cave was receding all over. From the crown, here, he could see the otherworldly pictures flowing from the apex of the crown like some projector, showing images from within the crystals. It reminded him of the showreel of the dreaming. It was like the dreaming everybody saw, only 40,000 years more advanced. The pictures were in motion like the flickering of hair under the close inspection of his eyes. The rest of the cave, however, had quieted down, almost entirely. The crown was showing him something, and it seemed he had the time to take in what was happening. The symphony of music that accompanied the light show was glory to the ears. The turquoise crystal on the side of the bearded man's head began to whistle high, and all of the other lights took a deep, creamy green, which electrified the air. The afros between the crown and Pin fluffed up. Waves of moving light projected above Styles' head. He was doing his best to concentrate on them. The turquoise was giving him flashbacks. Images of harlequin snakes, the black and white serpents. Flashbacks of learning with Pin how to throw boomerangs upward. Excellent when you are in narrow spaces. He had managed to throw the boomerang in the nest of harlequin snakes upon a pyramid in Gympie. Or so he thought. The boomerang had came flying, and he caught it. He reminisced the exact same images projecting from the apex of the crown, never sure which image he had conjured first, the one in his head or the one in front of him. Pin was not moving on purpose, as if in deep concentration. Sweat upon his brow glowed in the light. A rainbow of sweat on his forehead. He too was affected by the slowing of time. Whatever happening, attributed to the Adamite stone shining on Pin's brow. Then a feeling of weirdness came over Styles. He looked over at the path the human had taken. He looked back at the city behind him. The ether had made its way down the wall of the mighty pillar entrance, absorbing into the glowing wall, disappearing under the curtain. "I see you have your crown," he said to Pin. "Yes, it is done. Go up that way," pointing behind him directly to the causeway. It will take you out of here. Are you coming? No, I'm gonna stay and see what this human is up to. He won't recognize me in this form. I'll only be a while. Don't come back in here though. I don't know how long till the kangaroo comes back. He will return one day to see his father, he hoped. You must be fast like the boomerang and be gone. Now go, Styles Khan. With that thought, he ran up the steep causeway. He looked back towards his father and saw nothing but shaking blue lights, never slowing down as he ran. Concentrating on the sapphire entrance, the half-mile of rock glistened every time his heel left the ground. His feet began to glow. He looked down at his feet, absorbing resonance. It made for an experience. The sound off his feet was affecting the color of the polygons. At the end of the causeway, he noticed a shining object on the floor. A single silicon flower growing a round purple bud, tranquilly. He knew he would take it. He reached out with both hands to take the flower, and he put it in his hair, deep in the middle. Underneath the flower root was a sapphire disc. It was smooth and as wide as his palm. He picked it up, noticing that it was part of the floor. He hadn't noticed before, but the whole underground was made of polygons, gleaming on the floor. There was 40,000 years between him and that place. And with that, he ran back up to the sapphire place where he had been kicked by the kangaroo. It would never be destroyed, he thought to himself, as he walked past the column that let him fall so easily. As he looked through the mighty gap where he had fallen, he felt dizzy. Stepping back out, he felt his head. There was luminous plant juice and his blood on his hands. As it mixed, he saw through his hands into the floor. He tried to focus his eyes, and it only made things worse. X-ray vision from the crystal plant in the blood, he thought to himself. He sat for a moment and looked into the sapphire walls. Taking out the sapphire disc from his hair, he compared the two. They were exactly the same material, deep blue, in one of the perfect synchronicities through the realms. He was in his element. It was round and solid like the earth. At first glance, a grounding stone, he thought. As he left between the smooth colossal sapphire-cut rock walls, he half expected to see Nip-Nip standing there, smiling. He thought through his memories and realized he had no role models to speak of. None but Nip-Nip. For some reason, though, his only concern was to get out of this place and back to the never-ending limestone bedrock beneath his feet. Not over it, left to them by the ancient Madagascan. At least those caves were still a place for them to live until summit. Styles noticed the campfire was still going. He could see it. Nip-Nip had led him to this place, and now he was all alone. Leaving the cave, he thought blasted Nip-Nip's name, hoping to hear something. Nothing came back. After collecting twigs and brush and putting a healthy portion on the fire, he decided he would meditate in a sleep-like state until the last few hours of darkness receded, hoping that somehow wherever Nip Nip was, he would be okay.